With betrayal, there's also a shattering of the self that you knew as well. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. And that's why, after, let's again use losing someone you love, the invitation is to rebuild your life in a new and different way. With betrayal, not only is the invitation to rebuild your life, you need to rebuild the self. And here's the missed opportunity, because most people don't. They rebuild their lives, they don't rebuild themselves.
Ladies, this is Dina and Lizzie, and on this podcast, we help you understand what is really happening in your toxic relationship so that you can begin to heal, trust yourself again, and walk in truth.
Because you are not alone. You are not crazy, and you are deeply loved.
Hey, everybody. Today, we are so excited to introduce Dr. Debi Silber. Dr. Debi is the founder and CEO of the PBT, Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. It's the world's leading organization devoted to betrayal recovery research, education, and transformation, and the world's leading expert in betrayal recovery. She's a PhD credentialed researcher, a 2-time TEDx speaker, a 2-time #1 international best-selling author, and award-winning speaker. Her work has redefined how the world understands betrayal and its impact on human performance. Dr. Debi's research, validated across 100,000 people in 50 countries, produced 3 groundbreaking discoveries: that betrayal is a distinct type of trauma, that post-betrayal syndrome is a measurable condition silently sabotaging client progress across every niche, and that the 5 stages of betrayal recovery provide a proven, predictable pathway all the way to transformation. These discoveries give coaches a new level of precision, making their existing expertise dramatically more effective by knowing exactly where a client is and what they need to finally move forward. An ICF-approved CCE provider, she's a founder of the National Forgiveness Day and creator of the #1 betrayal recovery certification for coaches. Dr. Debi also hosts the globally top-ranked podcast From Betrayal to Breakthrough and has been featured on Fox, CBS, and the Dr. Oz Show. Dr. Debi, we are so happy to have you today, and I know our audience is going to really benefit from your wisdom. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation. Sure. You don't think someone just says, "Oh, I like the topic of betrayal, I want to study it"? No, you study because you have to. I'm in business 34 years, health, mindset, personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. I thought I did all I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened again a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house. And here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I needed to keep going. Like, I couldn't afford just to crash. And usually I would go to books or courses or mentors to help me move through something, learn something, heal from something. And I couldn't find anything. So this was so big that I decided that I needed to study it so big. So here I was at the time, 50 years old, and I enroll in a PhD program. And I just felt so called to do this, to study betrayal at the PhD level. And it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. And honestly, I studied it just to heal, to help myself, my clients, my kids. And that study led to those 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my work, my family, my health, my life.
Wow. That's amazing, because normally when you talk to somebody at your level of education, they're not focusing on one specific aspect like you have. And I love that, though. That's absolutely fascinating, because it allows you to, like a physician, it allows you to be the expert in that area.
I wasn't counting on that. I was only counting on healing. And I remember moving through, starting the study, saying, I have no idea if and how I can heal from this, but if I can, I'm taking everybody with me. I mean, I'm a highly sensitive empath, and integrity is my highest value. So there was no room for betrayal in my life, and it wasn't even enough to heal. It's like I had to do something really big with this to make it to make the trauma well spent.
I tell you, betrayal for me in my personal life, 27 years of cheating and lying and sexual addiction. And of course, Lizzie marrying the same man and going through a betrayal of a double life where he's married, to her, and then basically making a family with someone else. Like, we have really experienced deep, heart-wrenching betrayal. And I get you. When you say it took that long to heal and then you still weren't healed, I completely understand that. And I'm
Well,
sure our audience does.
yeah, and that's the thing. And going from one betrayal to another also is a classic sign that it's unhealed. But betrayal, it's such a different type of trauma. First of all, anybody who tells you trauma is trauma, no, it's not. Betrayal is so different. Like here, and I'm sure you've experienced this. Think about it. Let's say you lose someone you love. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, life will never be the same. But you don't question that relationship. You don't, right? You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. Also, when you lose someone you love, using that example, people rally. Hey, what do you need? How can I help? With betrayal, there's so much shame and humiliation and embarrassment for something that the betrayed didn't even do. And then on top of it, very often the betrayed is taking the heat for the betrayer. They're covering for them. So now they've had one of the most painful of the human experiences, and they're struggling and suffering in silence. Like here it is, a Tuesday, random Tuesday, and the kids are like, "What's for dinner, Mom? What's going on? You're showing up for work, doing all the things. It's like you broke your leg and there's a marathon, go run." And it's so different. And one of the other things is too, with other traumas, and it's not to minimize any, they all traumas stink. But with other traumas, there's a shattering of life as you've known it, right? And that's true with betrayal. But with betrayal, there's also a shattering of the self that you knew as well. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. And that's why, after, let's again use losing someone you love, the invitation is to rebuild your life in a new and different way. With betrayal, not only is the invitation to rebuild your life, you need to rebuild the self. And here's the missed opportunity, because most people don't. They rebuild their lives, they don't rebuild themselves. And it's like a waste of trauma. And we could get to that in the second and third discoveries. But that betrayal is so different. I mean, that's huge. And I'll just share one more thing. Trust. I mean, and I wrote the book Trust Again, so I know how big of an issue trust is. But think about it. It's like well-meaning coaches, counselors, therapists say, "Oh, you know what? You need to learn to trust again. Start with a low stakes thing." Well-meaning, well-intentioned. That is so off. And here's why. When we trust someone, we have our own system to discern trustworthiness. Like, let's say we're like, if that person says or does something repeatedly, consistently, I don't know, 50, 100 times, whatever it is, I can decide and I can believe that they're trustworthy, right? Now they betray our trust. Not only is it a shock to us because this was the person we gave our trust to, what's even worse is we look at it saying, uh-oh, my whole system that I created to discern trustworthiness is broken. My compass doesn't work. I can't even trust anything now. I don't trust what anybody's saying or doing because now my system is broken. I don't trust myself. You see? So trusting in someone else, that's one of the last places we need to look.
That is
So
so
well
well
said.
I was saying, I was just like, when you were naming all those emotions that you go through in betrayal, I was like, check, check, check,
Yeah.
check. That is so accurate. And it's like you want to go in this through the betrayal. I just remembered that I wanted to just go into like the fetal position, like
Mhm.
any like, how could you not know look or anything like that just made it worse because you are dealing with the shame and the guilt. How did I not know? How could I not know? And people are so good at saying, how could you not know? Or if I would have figured that one out. And you're like, seriously? I mean, is that really what you say to somebody in the midst of their
People say the dumbest things.
betrayal?
And everything you're speaking about is part of the third discovery, and I definitely want to get to it. But people say they don't know what to say. I mean, I'll never forget, a friend of mine said, "Debbie," and I thought she was going to say something really helpful and healing and hopeful. And she said, "I'm so glad I'm not you." Okay. Thanks. And some people think it's contagious. Some people don't know what to say, so they say nothing, and and that's when you need them the most, right? So it's one of those things. And then I see this with the betrayed. They're not the ones sharing because of that shame and humiliation. And that's on them. And I remember doing this with my friends, a lot of friends. I wasn't sharing. I was so embarrassed. Everybody loved my husband. So by the time I did, I had a friend who was really angry with me in the most loving way, because a friendship isn't just about the good times, and it isn't just about me helping when they need it. here I needed something, and I didn't bring that to my friend, and that was my fault. So there's so much to it. But to your point, Lizzie, there are so many symptoms. When we talk about those symptoms, that was the second discovery. There's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. We now know it as post-betrayal syndrome. And so many people have these symptoms for years, decades, thinking, oh, well, that's just me. No, it's not. That's from the unhealed betrayal. So what happens is over time, we're just suppressing and medicating and trying to outrun symptoms that are there because of the betrayal. And until and unless we do anything about it, they will remain. And I'll give you a story to show what I mean. We had a woman, and this is when the PBT Institute had members coming in. Now we train practitioners. So we had a woman coming in, and she was in her mid 80s, and she had a 70 plus year digestive issue. 45% of everyone betrayed has a gut issue of some kind: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, reflux, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. 70 plus years she had a digestive issue. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like something like that. You can imagine over the course of 70 years, the protocols, the medicines, the supplements, the food, all of it. For her to just be like, I have a bad stomach, it's who I am. 2 weeks working with us, healing the betrayal, she healed from a 70 plus year digestive issue. That's what happens when you heal the root, when you heal what's actually the problem. But people don't realize that symptoms started because of the betrayal. So they're medicating and suppressing all the symptoms instead of healing it at the root. So now imagine over 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country's represented. As much as I'm going to share the symptoms, hear these numbers. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. When you don't have a sense of personal power, think of the decisions you make. Think of what you say yes to. Think of what you're not doing, right? 80% are hypervigilant. That's exhausting. Think of what that's doing to your nervous system. 94% deal with painful triggers. Some of the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. Here you're supposed to be working, raising kids, taking care of elderly parents, whatever you have going on, and you have no energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% have extreme fatigue. So you can sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. 7% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe they can't hold food down. Later on, they're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. I mentioned about the digestive issues. Mentally, 78% are overwhelmed. I'm skipping a few. Let's see. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You're exhausted. You have a gut issue. There you are, headed to work, trying to be creative in your job, right? Trying to produce, trying to sell if you're in sales. Like, look at what's going on. And that's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry, and you're bouncing back and forth between those two all day long. 79% are stressed. I'm just going to read a few more. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust. And if you don't rebuild that, think about what that's going to do to any future relationship, right? 7% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. That means the big wall goes up. Yeah, you're keeping out the bad ones, but you're keeping out the good ones too. Most people are doing that. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. And just to wrap that up, you didn't hear me say 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not representative of a recent betrayal. This could be like that 80-year-old woman I was telling you about, the woman in her 80s. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know or remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are, decades later, with those symptoms because it was left unhealed. The good news is you could heal from all of it. That was the third discovery.
So I can't wait to get to the third discovery. Absolutely can't wait. But what percentage, roughly, just in your own estimation, do you think of people that just have no idea that they're even experiencing this because of betrayal? Like you said, the elderly lady was just like, I've had gut issues. I mean, all these issues can be thrown at, chronic fatigue, or I'm just stressed out at work, or, I have a big family and I have kids, or I was divorced recently, or whatever. So what percent do you think just have no clue?
So much. I don't know if you've heard of the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's a powerful study. Hundreds of thousands of people have taken this study to see when you have a childhood experience, how it affects you later on in life. The reason why I'm bringing this up is one of the founders of the study was on my podcast and we were talking about it. And he said, Debbie, do you know, he goes, I would say most, if not all trauma begins with betrayal. So like, think about it. We go into corporate corporations are paying so much for stress, for trust issues, for psychological safety. What's at the root of all of that? Betrayal. That's where that's where the stress is coming from. That's where trust got shattered. That's why people don't feel safe. So much of the issues that people are having, it's because of an unhealed betrayal. I'm not saying it's every single, at the root of every single thing, but I would guarantee it's a majority of it. And because a betrayal doesn't have to necessarily be, let's say, infidelity as an adult. It could be from that childhood experience, or it could be as something that you perceived as a betrayal. If you expected, your parents, a teacher, someone in a religious capacity, whatever it is, to be a certain way, show up a certain way, and they didn't, right? There's a betrayal right there. You were counting on something and you didn't get it, right? So there are so many different aspects to it. Someone took advantage of a position of power, right? All these things. And this gets lodged in the body. And then we move into relationships as we get older, maybe not necessarily because they're good, they're familiar. We know how this works. When our self-esteem has been shattered, when we don't have confidence, when we feel rejected or abandoned, right? It's going to be, when we look and see, oh, I get why I chose this person. I get why that love bombing really worked on me. Right. I get why, I was feeling so supported and special and all these things. It's what I didn't have. It's what I didn't receive. Right. So there's so much to it.
So are you kind of saying in a roundabout way that if you were betrayed as a child, you are more susceptible to being betrayed as you're older?
It's that if it's unhealed, it's very likely it's going to continue. Some people, that's not the case at all. Some people had an amazing childhood, and that's not it at all. Some haven't. It really has very little to do with that. It also, for very bright women, they get very upset with this one. It has very little to do with intelligence. So many people think, oh, I'm so smart. I'll either prevent it or think my way through it. No, that's the wrong tool for the job. Betrayal has nothing to do with intelligence. And it's interesting because there's such a great frustration with so many people because they're like, I don't get why this is hitting me so differently. Besides all the reasons why betrayal is so different. It's because you're using your brilliant mind thinking that's going to get you out of this. And it's like doing every home improvement with a hammer. Sometimes you need a different tool.
That's well said. And sometimes I think those people that have the very doctors or whatever behind their name, and yet they're the ones that the fall is as hard, if not harder, because I don't know if I would want to say pride, because we had a friend on who went through the betrayal, and she's a doctor. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does not matter the age or
No,
the intelligence or the whatever
not
you've
at
gotten a
all.
doctorate in. Yeah.
Betrayal isn't picky. It's really not. It has more to do, here's the thing too, and this may annoy a lot of people, but I only speak the truth. It's never your fault, but it is a gigantic opportunity. There's a profound lesson in that betrayal. And until and unless you get that, you're going to have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. So maybe the lesson is understand it already that you're lovable, worthy, and deserving. Learn already that you need better boundaries in place, whatever. When you get that lesson learned. You don't need to keep repeating it until you get the mother of all betrayals, which are wonderful in that they convince us to say, that's it. I'm never doing this again. I'm never settling for that again. Right? Lesson learned. Like in my case, and I'll wrap up, I'll close the loop on my story, but in my case, for me to enroll in a PhD program at 50, I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to manage the time. I had never done anything for myself. And for me, that was that big, right? But it was all about everybody else. That was it. But lesson learned. It changed my entire life, you see? So these things are coming up. It's a hard thing to hear and believe as we're going through it. But if we're willing to move through it, and again, that brings us to the third discovery, you'll see the version of you that was just waiting to be birthed as a result.
Wow, I love that. I mean, very, very rarely do you get that much hope infused in a traumatic experience that you don't know how to deal with.
That's the thing. And a lot of people get really annoyed at me because they get so locked on to their story and all it's given them. And this third discovery blows all of that out of the water. Because with the third discovery, what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and many people do, if we're going to fully heal, we will move through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. So once you know the stages, and if you are staying stuck, there's a roadmap now. And I'm happy to share the stages if that would help.
Please take all the time you need. This is gold. This is absolute gold. And I know our listeners are going to eat this up. So please, yes, the stages and how you get from point A to point B or point D or whatever point. Yeah, please share that, because this is I mean, for anybody that's been through betrayal, especially very deep betrayal, you're right. You get stuck and you don't even know you're stuck, and you just are moving through life and you're blaming whatever issues you have on other things. So please, yes, Dr. Debi,
you'll see,
take it away.
You'll see exactly where that shows up too. So stage 1, this is actually before it happens. And here's where, think about it. When we think we're in a healthy relationship, we're not scanning for betrayal. We're in a relationship. We're doing the things that we do in relationships. And we're assuming that's healthy and that's okay, tending to the relationship in the way we do, but also going to work, raising our kids, doing the things, right? There's also something interesting though. Sometimes we intentionally, or sometimes unintentionally, turn down our intuition, right? Sometimes we turn down our intuition. It's unintentional, because the only way we can do all those things is by kind of being more like thinking and doing versus feeling and being, right? So we get more done the less we feel. We do that sometimes. We turn ourselves into, machines and get all the things done. But sometimes, and there's no fault here, so I don't want anybody to feel bad about this, sometimes we intentionally turn down our intuition. And we do that because if we are to confront what we feel and what our intuition is telling us, it is likely going to unravel everything we've created. The friends, the family, the work, the house, all the things. If it's at work, if I call my boss on it or whatever, my coworker, right? And we don't have the mental, the emotional, maybe the financial bandwidth to take that on. So we intentionally feel like, you know what? Maybe there's a good explanation. Maybe I'm just going to look the other way. I'm sure I'm misreading this. I'm sure. Right now, we're playing games with ourselves, but we're doing it for a reason. So you know what it's like? It's like if you've ever had that thread hanging from that sweater and you're like, uh-oh, if I pull this thing, the whole thing may come down. So we choose to let it be. But that's a stage 1 thing. And it's very, very common and very, very typical. Now, then we're shocked and we're blindsided, and this is stage 2. But there's this process where it's like, how did I not see? How did I not know? Like what you said, right? Now, this is really important in the beginning. But what happens is there is a point where this becomes destructive. In the beginning, it's very helpful. And this is why well-meaning, when they're well-meaning people, you just have to move on already. No, you need to do that. And you're doing it because you want to find out what you missed so that you can regain that self-trust to see, okay, now I know what to look for so I can trust myself again. You see? So it's very, very important. But stage 2 is shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all the stages. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, the worldview. Right here, you've ignited the stress response. You are now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. The mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. And the bottom has bottomed out on you. And a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical stage. But this is the stage, by far, hands down, the majority of people get stuck in. And here's why. Because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma you just came from, you think it's good. And you don't know there's anywhere else to go. So here's where you create your new life. But it's flat. It's behind walls. There's an unwillingness to be vulnerable. There's an unwillingness to learn how to trust. That takes a lot of courage. And we're choosing that level of safety. So there's nothing wrong with it, but we're fine. And someone's stuck in stage 3 if they're fine. And here's why, and I love it, in our practitioner certification, we teach the language of each stage. So they learn, usually when their client says they're fine, that's when they graduate that client. Okay, best of luck to you, right? And I'm not suggesting even that that's why the client is coming to them. Maybe they're coming to them it's a life coach, and they're coming to them for confidence. And that client gets to a place of, I'm fine. And they're like, I don't get it. Like, my stuff works on everybody else. Why not that person? That's because it's a betrayal client. And fine doesn't mean transformed. It just means survived. That's it. And so we create this functional life. It's like we've been wearing the dirty glasses for so long, we don't even know we have them on. Right? We're seeing through that lens. We're so unhappy. Now we go to therapy. Well-meaning, well-intentioned therapists, and I certify a lot of them, they're the hardest ones to certify. You're feeling heard and validated and understood. And you're wondering, why am I stuck in stage 3 for 10 years? It's because you're only feeling heard and validated and understood. You're not an inch closer to stage 4 after every one of those appointments, right? And then, maybe you find a support group, well-meaning, but now you sabotage your healing because you found your people, right? And now maybe you want to heal, but you're afraid to outgrow your betrayer. So you sabotage your success. And now you're so unhappy here, but you don't know what else to do. So right here, we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. Start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever, keep them busy. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I can see someone 30 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? Especially if they're overworking, they're commended for it. Exercising, they're commended for it. Like, what are you talking about? All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense? Yeah. And this is why most people live in stage 3. Now they're having repeat betrayals because nothing has really changed. They're suppressing and medicating symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. They're fine. And that's as good as it gets, right? Anyway.
So why are they having repeat betrayals? I'm wondering about that. Is it okay? And I understand that they're in the unhealed state. They're just numb and think they're fine, and they think they've, because they're not in the, like you said, they're not in that horrific, can't breathe, just my whole world fell apart. They're not there. And so they do feel fine. But why are they experiencing repeat betrayals because of that?
Because they didn't transform. Here, can you see my hands? I'm going to show you something. You'll never forget this. Ready? Okay. This is what most people do. They have a betrayal. They're so miserable. They're so upset. They're so hurt. They're like, I just want this pain to go away. Well, let me just get back with that person or with somebody else. And then nothing really changed. So they're like, it happened again. Oh my gosh, this is so painful. This is so sad. Let me just, get with this person. And then they have relationships like this. This is the difference. When you move through the 5 stages of betrayal recovery, you start doing this. Now, if you're so committed to this person, you're going to sabotage yourself because you don't want to outgrow them. But you like it here. So then you're going to say, but why can't they do this? Well, they're not ready. You didn't sign up for that. You don't know if that's going to happen. So if you're doing the work and they're not, and you're so committed to this person, you're going to get this and be like, ooh, they really like that. So the whole idea is you move through the 5 stages. We have no idea what this person's going to do, but they may say, I better step up my game to meet the strength of that person. They do this. This is a 2.0 relationship. But either way, if you do this and this is where you live and you don't abandon this spot, this can't help but show up because this is who you are. You see?
So you're growing, you're choosing to grow, and you're choosing to heal, and you're choosing to go to a higher level in your life. But by doing that, you're losing those other people. Is that what you're saying? You're basically sabotaging, not really purposely sabotaging, obviously, but by growing and by expanding your horizons, that person might stay exactly where they're at, which means loss. So now you're not dealing with, right? You're dealing with loss.
And one of the biggest reasons why people don't do this is they're afraid they'll be alone here. But
and they will. Probably.
All the people that they are who would act in their best interest, who act with integrity, who are showing up, who are the friends and the partners and the people they want in their lives, this is where they all live.
Yeah.
But this
But
is the familiar known.
well, and often I know in my own experience, being raised in a dysfunctional family and then choosing a dysfunctional partner, my filter was broken. So I had multiple people in my lives that weren't romantic partners that were also, very broken people. And I had a lot of betrayal from almost everybody in my life. So I get that. If you decide to grow and to, come up to a higher level within yourself, then you do leave a lot of people behind. And, for people that are empaths and pleasers and, very kind, loving people, it's terrifying because now you're also losing your identity in a way. If you're becoming somebody else and you're not surrounded with the familiar, comfortable people, you're alone. That's a
But you're
tough one.
becoming someone entirely new. You're taking all the parts you love and leaving behind everything that no longer serves. And that's what stage 4 is about. Here's where you realize I can't change what happened, but I change what I do with it. And you look and you say, what was I settling for? What have I outgrown? Who am I now ready to become? Who do I want around me? And what is no longer a fit? It's very forward moving, very action oriented. And those people who are like that support group, where everyone's just commiserating with each other and pulling each other down, you're done. That well-meaning, well-intentioned therapist where you're just rehashing each week in the most loving way, right? Having you just feel heard and validated and understood, you're done. The betrayer is not changing, you're done. People ask me all the time, Dr. Debi, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if those people don't rise, they don't get to come along. But people are so afraid of the death and destruction of the old, and that's the only way you birth the new. Like, for example, again, to close the loop on my story, healing and rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move on. And that's what I did with my family. I was doing this. There was no change. And so that was the end. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new, as two completely transformed people. I did this. My husband did this. We married each other again up here. Now, I never in a bazillion years would have done anything like that if I didn't do this, and for sure if he didn't do this. That's the opportunity. But people are so afraid of this. They're like, uh-oh, they may not be here, so they keep living this.
Wow. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I feel like I walked through all of that and
I didn't even get to stage 5.
Okay, let's do stage 5 then. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so stage 5 is once you've made it mentally cozy and home in this new space, you move into stage 5, and that's healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body is healing. The mind is healing. Boundaries are in place, new levels of health, new relationships, either with the person who hurt you in a very different way or with someone entirely new businesses, new passion projects. You didn't have the bandwidth for that in stage 3. In stage 5, you had the bandwidth for all of it.
I think that's just it's just so well-rounded. And I'm like, anybody that's listening, the first thing I want to say is, hey, put in the comments or wherever, what stage do you feel that you really resonated with you at this time right now? Because I agree with Dina. I mean, you were talking about these phases. I was like, I've been there. Yeah. So I know it really resonated with me, and I know it looks like it resonated with Dina, but those are just well laid out and methodical.
Yeah. And it's also,
agreed.
it's not so linear, it's messy, but it's like this. Moving through the stages is like this. You're consistently going forward, but you're going back a little bit, but it's consistent.
For sure.
I totally agree. And I think anytime we go through any healing or any type of trauma, I think to really heal, it's just messy anyway without it.
Yeah.
Because you can't sweep it under a rug. It's not going
No,
to stay
you can.
there.
People try, but it doesn't work. I mean, I tell people
It
this
comes out.
it's the hardest and the most transformative work you'll ever do. You are creating a version of you that is so healthy, so confident, so healed, so whole, so strong because of what you've been through. And that's trauma well served.
Yeah, that's amazing. Honestly, I feel like the most strong, wise, deep wells of insight type of people are the ones that have gone through this type of pain and they've come out the other side and they can now actually see to help you come to where they're at. So this is fantastic. And I do have a question. So I know you read off the list of symptoms, how to know that you might be unhealed from betrayal trauma. But those symptoms can go with a lot of different things, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like say someone like me, how would I differentiate between I have, a lot of digestive problems and gastritis and GERD and all these things,
Mhm.
and several other things. How would I know that this is definitely stemming from the betrayal trauma? Or do you not know until you go through the program and you just get a lot of aha moments?
You work on healing the betrayal and you find if it resolves, it was absolutely because of that. And you also want to look at where when it originated. Usually it's after, an experience. It takes looking at where it started. Yeah, I just saw that. Right. So there's the aha right there. So it's looking at where it started and then moving through the betrayal and really healing it. You get yourself to stage 5 and you watch all of it heal.
Wow, that's just this was so much more than I even imagined it would be. This is really mind-blowing because I mean, 27 years in that first marriage, and even after we divorced and then he was married to Lizzie, gosh, what was it, 3 years after, I think, something like that. He went and filed bankruptcy. And when he filed bankruptcy, I was with my new husband and we were trying to build our life together. And I had finally gotten my credit for the first time in my life to a decent amount to where my new husband and I could buy our own home. And because, my ex had also a financial abuse situation and ruined my credit completely, took out all kinds of loans in my name without me knowing, etc. And so here I am out of the marriage, should be completely out of his reach because the kids are grown. We don't share children or custody or anything. And the guy goes and files bankruptcy. And I'm telling you, my health, I was so angry because I didn't take a dime from him. I gave him every penny of his retirement. I'm like, whatever, you can have it. This is just whatever. I think I'm going to be fine. And then I turn around and he literally, all his creditors came after me for all of the debt that he had racked up without my knowledge in my name while we were married. And I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought once you just, sign divorce papers and split everything and the judge stamped it, that they had no reach. But that is not true. If your name's on anything, and even if they run it all up while you're divorced and your name's still on it, doesn't matter. So that is where my health started really having some major, major problems that I still deal with today. And that was like 8 years ago.
Well,
so I can trace that back for sure.
Yeah. And can I use this as a teaching moment right here?
Please.
Okay. Now, I know you're sharing this for the sake of the listeners, the viewers, and everything else, but I invite you to just take note of how your body is feeling right now.
Yeah. I feel very uptight and nervous and still angry. Just, it was like he already wrecked my life for 27 years. And then,
right, but look at the power he still has over you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I didn't know he did. I would have told you before this conversation that I was 100% healed and over the whole thing. I would have told you that.
Yeah.
Until now.
And the body is telling us and thank you for being so honest. The body is telling us what needs the work. But I can promise you, when you can share that story without the emotional charge, that's more of a stage 5 thing. And it just shows what, what still needs the work that's such a classic example of a stage 3. And it doesn't mean you're fully in stage 3. It's like we're part in stage 3 and stage 4. But when we're going over it, again, and when we're now that whole cascade of hormones, stress hormones and chemicals, that's doing the damage right there. So how can the body heal? The body can't heal when that's what we're doing to it. But of course, it's not like we can't ignore it because that just means it's unprocessed. So we have to process it, move through it. That's what. And anyway,
wow. Yeah, I developed this adrenal issue. Like it like hit my adrenals, and now like any stress at all, I can't even have a cup of coffee because the caffeine will make me super shaky and uptight. You know what I'm saying? So it's like my entire nervous system was wrecked, and now I have this crazy hypoglycemia because of it. These crazy blood sugar swings, even though I'm not diabetic. Because my adrenals are a disaster and my cortisol is off. And so I've had that for now 8 years, and I never would have thought in a million years. I knew it happened then. Wow. Anyway, that was fantastic.
Dr. Debi actually worked through something in Dina that she had no idea she needed to work through. But that's how healing goes anyway, though, whether it's betrayal or anything else. We don't heal right away. I think it does bubble up. And it's just kind of those aha epiphany moments where you're like, this was a problem. This, like what Dina was saying, just kind of feeling a little tense and a little emotion there.
A lot.
Yeah,
I'm still pissed off. That's
No, I get it. But here's the thing. You want to use that as fuel to heal. right? Because
Hmm.
if then that's beautiful. Use that as the fuel. When you're using it as just like, look what he did to me. You've just said, here's all my power. Go ahead, here you have it. But when you use that, oh yeah, but when you use that fuel to say, and now I know there are 5 stages and I'm moving through every one of them because I'm not giving you. You don't deserve that attention. You don't deserve to
Right.
tank my adrenals. Like, no,
Yep.
no.
I'm
So
going to use my pissed offness to heal and get better
there you go.
and to
There you go.
walk away and just never
Yeah.
ever. Yeah.
And that's what
No.
I train all of our PBT coaches and practitioners. Like, the whole idea is when they're teaching the 5 stages to their clients, their patients, know where that person's at so that you can, I don't care if they take them incrementally or further, but every single conversation, they need to move towards that next stage. Otherwise, what's the point of having a path if no one's really paying attention to it? There's a way out of it, a way through it, fully, completely, totally. Staying
Yeah.
stuck, I mean, you don't have to.
Okay. So for me and anybody else out there listening, what do they need to do first to find your program and to get the help that they need?
Yeah. Well, now we're certifying practitioners. We're going into corporate. So everything, just, I would say, check out the PBT as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com.
That's
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you,
Okay,
Dr.
so
Debbie.
check that out, and then you said you're certifying people to be coaches in this
Well, you know
in
what it
this
is? We were
capacity.
certifying people we were working with members coming into the PBT Institute, and I was helping them, my coaches were. And then I realized, with these 5 stages, the more coaches and practitioners we certify, the more people get helped. Because otherwise, it's only people I have access to. But if I certify, we have coaches all over the world. If I certify coaches all over the world, for every coach that gets certified, now everyone that they have access to can move through the 5 stages. So
My goodness.
we've transitioned to bringing this into corporate because of how many times I have met with someone who said, I'm going to lose my job. I can't hold it together, whatever. And so we're bringing this into corporate and we're certifying coaches and practitioners because these people are coming their way anyway. If you're an executive coach, if you're a health coach, it doesn't matter. You may as well know the language and how they're showing up so you can see through it and know, oh, when they say they're fine, that's a stage 3 thing. Now I know. Now I'm going to take them all the way through.
Wow.
Great
And Livy and
insight.
I are life coaches. We're both life coaches, and I'm a health coach because I've been in healthcare for 3-4 decades now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
those
yeah.
symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome that a lot of your clients are coming to you with, a lot of it at the root of it
Mhm.
is betrayal. So imagine
Oh,
using, being a life
yes.
coach with the great tools that you have and a health coach with the great tools that you have. And then when these people come your way who happen to have a betrayal in the background, think about how much more effectively you could
Mm,
really help them.
That is so insightful.
priceless.
Yeah.
Absolutely priceless. Wow.
I think the mic dropped right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Debbie, this has been one of the most insightful podcasts we have ever had. I cannot appreciate you enough. I know your time is very busy and valuable, but you took the time to come on our podcast, and thank you.
Yeah,
Truly.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Grateful for the opportunity.
Our joy. If something in this conversation resonated with you, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what stage am I in right now? Am I surviving or actually healing? Healing from betrayal isn't about going back. It's about becoming someone stronger, wiser, and fully restored.
And if this episode spoke to you, please subscribe for more conversations on healing and growth. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it, and let us know in the comments, what stage are you in? Remember, you are not stuck. You're just in a stage, and there is always a way forward.